Hey, John. Hello and
Hello.
welcome to Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik podcast. John, it's time we sit down and talk about some news.
Sure.
We've got some things to chat about.
Yes, we do.
So I very carefully picked through articles about this because there were many. This was all like clickbaity headlines over the week. I don't know if you saw
Yes.
this, John.
Is this China's announcement that they think they detected an alien civilization?
No.
Okay.
No. This one is the Google engineer that claims he created life.
Oh,
You not heard about this one?
I have not.
All right. That's probably a good thing. So I had folks I knew posting various headlines from this one. And an engineer at Google claimed he had created sentient life
Oh yeah, I remember that.
using
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the reason was, but this person appears to be laid off, which
I don't.
must
Yeah, I
be
was just gonna say I don't think he works at Google. So
he did, I
he
think.
did. He did,
Yeah.
but doesn't anymore.
Yep.
Not that that
So
matters. So
yeah. So this was all over like every tech headline. It was very clickbaity. Um, it was kind of like this. Everybody's scared. The computer it's awake. We've reached the moment. You know,
sure.
where AI has come alive.
Yes.
I don't know what the deal is with the engineer, why they were so adamant about saying this thing was, had a life of its own. But I finally found an article that was intelligently written, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
Uh, and they kind of dove into like the real scenario and what we should actually be worried about. And I thought this was actually a good read, despite all of the other kind of like nonsense that was out there about like,
Right.
the other articles were all like scare tactics, basically saying, we've hit that point. Oh my gosh, there's no turning back. And it's not even
Sure.
close to that. So basically, do you remember? I think it was the Taylor incident. Was that the right name for it? The bot that Microsoft created and it like became like very racist.
Oh, I remember that. Yes,
Yeah. So this is, yeah. Go ahead.
there was a bot that was responding to human interaction. It was their chat bot called Tay, I believe,
Tay. Yeah.
and I think it was launched in, I want to say about seven years ago. I remember this vaguely, and it would respond to human input, and after it would learn, and after a while, it started it started yeah, let's just say some colorful responses to people who were talking to this bot.
Yeah, so I think what happened there was people caught wind that this thing was using like Twitter and stuff as training data,
Right.
and
The
you
best
could,
place for training data, of course, yes.
yeah, you could tweet directly to it and it would start mimicking these behaviors. So they
Yes.
started just spamming it with just obscene garbage, and eventually it became a just unbearable, like
Yes.
misogynistic, racist robot. So this one didn't do exactly that, but it's on the
Okay.
same level of
Okay.
like technology, let's just say.
All
So
right.
it's parsing large amounts of language and trying to use that to become a you know more intelligent seeming AI that can interface with people. Um,
Let me guess what happened. It became a bit of an obnoxious bot.
so what the engineer says is it started like kind of asking to become a real boy type of thing. Like, like
Okay.
he's this engineer's like Geppetto all of a sudden. And
Sure.
he's got this bot that's like, I'm an employee of Google and I want to be a real boy. And he's like, oh, it's alive. And then I guess he kind of got dismissed after that.
Yes.
Um, and the article in here kind of goes on about that. It's like the Google executives dismissed his concerns with as there was unsupported evidence. Um, I think if you know kind of what's going on with AI right now, like, we're pretty far from like general intelligence. Like, I don't see that this thing that's farming uh, like all of this human language has become intelligent, but more that it got really good at mimicking human language.
Right.
Um, it wasn't asking for things based on the fact that it really needed to have the knowledge or wanted to learn something that was outside the scope of what it was designed to do or that type of thing. But it just got really darn convincing that it was not just a basic bot. So if
Okay.
you read through this, there's actually some really good commentary on it, and at the very bottom of it here, the summary is really good. And the uh, the person that wrote this is saying, these systems are dangerous. Like, it's
Yes.
not dangerous though in the terms of like it's going to like hack into the Pentagon and acquire like DEFCON in like launch missiles on somebody. It's not going to be the uh, the Terminator situation.
Right.
But they are dangerous in other ways. So if you use these things maliciously, in the summary down here at the bottom, um, you could point these type of very convincing bots to fool people into believing you know something for your agenda is true. So
Mm.
you don't have to have a personal like army, for lack of a better term, like hired hands going out and like making cold calls and soliciting and doing stuff on your behalf. You just enlist these bots to literally talk to people, and they're convincing enough that people don't know they're talking to a bot. So it down here it says, from advertising and propaganda to disinformation, these can become a vehicle for social manipulation on a massive scale. So it's like, yeah, we shouldn't downplay this as like innocent and harmless, but we're looking at the wrong kind of danger if you look at the other headlines that
Yes.
people were posting.
Yes. I
So
agree.
yeah, that was what I liked about the article. It kind of like, it's like, calm down, everybody.
Mm.
Let's see if we actually have the Washington Post headline. Yeah, Google engineer thinks AI has come to life. Like, this is the kind of like headline that was being spammed everywhere
Mm.
and repeated by many outlets. And these are like big news outlets too. So it's
Sure.
like the Washington Post is like, it's not like some little corner rag. This is like a major news outlet posting this clickbaity junk. And
Sure.
then, we finally get somebody over at VentureBeat that's like, look, you're looking in the wrong place for the danger, folks. Like, this is what we should really be concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, Hollywood is littered with examples of movies based on the same premise of the machines taking over. So obviously, it's got people's attention. And it's a part of the zeitgeist, and as a result, a news headline like that would definitely get some clicks.
Yep, and that's exactly what they're going after, is clicks, and instead of giving you a good opinion piece on what actually is happening, like this author did, I have to give it to him for like taking the high road and
Right.
not just going for clicks, but actually offering some intelligent conversation around what happened there.
Right.
So that I thought that was a much better version uh, of that article, or that
Excellent.
topic anyway. So
All right.
keep your eye out for that one. That's a
I
good
won't.
read.
It's a big
And they
nothing
did go a
burger in my
little,
book.
yeah, a little clickbaity. Aliens haven't landed yet. They were talking about AI, not literal
Sure.
aliens, but yeah, it's like aliens
Whatever.
were all in the news and all the rage this week. So
Very good.
I did see the Chinese talking to aliens thing as well, but
Sure. Yeah,
I'll
why not?
sidebar that one too. John, I think you posted this one here, the hertzbleed
Hertzbleed.
attack. This is a
Yes.
Intel thing, right?
Well, well, first of all, let's set the context. So this is a website, hertzbleed.com, that goes into some detail as to what this is. So hertzbleed attack is a new classification, a new what they call a family of what are called side channel attacks. So side channel attacks are they're known in cryptographic circles as a way of gaining extra information about a system that is being used for cryptographic algorithms. So for some examples of side channels attacks include like cache attacks, timing attacks, power monitoring. Um, there's some other ones as well, like even acoustics can get involved with in regards to these cryptographic algorithms. And the reason
Mhm.
why side channel attacks are potentially dangerous is because they're not a flaw in the cryptographic algorithm that's being used, but rather what they do is they provide this alternative route, a side channel to possibly exploit the algorithm in place. And so um, it's not the fault of the mathematicians who are coming up with these algorithms, but rather it's the way in which these algorithms are run on the systems, and this side channel provides this ability to gain insight or information. Some examples of this is decoding keys, cryptographic keys, based on things that the system that's running the algorithm is leaking. It's kind of like leaking data, basically. So, like even
Mhm.
like the classic one is like the power monitoring. How much power is being monitored by um, a system will give you some insight as to how to exploit or crack essentially some of these things. So hertzbleed is a new family of side channel attacks, and it's based on something that you see in a lot of CPUs, which is this frequency adjustment of CPUs for
Mhm.
power. So in a lot of modern systems today, you'll see this sort of power saving mode where based on the characteristics of the system, it will either increase or decrease the frequency, the hertz of the CPU running in order to conserve power. And based off of that, based on the experiments that this group has done, they've discovered that under certain conditions or circumstances, that this dynamic scaling of this frequency of these modern processors can therefore give you a side channel into these cryptographic algorithms, essentially. And
Interesting.
so, yeah, so this got a little bit of some attention. I read the paper and I found it quite interesting. And some people will say, "Oh, this isn't practical," blah blah blah. But in reality, it's actually quite practical. I saw a YouTube video where they were discussing with some Intel folks, some of the researchers. They were saying that they only needed about 36 hours to basically perform this type of attack on a system. And this is pretty significant, actually, if you think about it, because that's not a long set of time in a sort of scenario where you're trying to compromise a secure system, essentially. So, anyways,
Yeah.
just something to keep a white like so. Just like AI is not sentient, hertzbleed is not yet a something that's going to see. It's not like I love you or things like that, but it is certainly something that has come about now. The mitigation that has been proposed by folks is to basically inform cryptographic authors, that is the people who write these algorithms, like, hey, you got to be aware of this, you should try and mitigate or guard against these sorts of things. In a sense,
Mhm.
there's some theories that people are espousing all kinds of theories right now. They're saying things like, oh, modern systems will incorporate this sort of guarded CPU core that will have no frequency adjustment to mitigate against this in the future, etc. So I don't know, we'll see what happens, but I just thought it was interesting and I thought I'd mention it.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah.
I misspoke. It does affect like all processors,
Oh
not
yeah.
just
Yeah, yeah.
Intel. So
Yeah.
Intel has just stated that it does affect them, and then everybody else is still like trying to figure it out. And AMD's like, well, we've confirmed it on X, Y, and
Yeah.
Z, and ARM's just like, meh, we don't know yet. So it looks like it's likely something that can affect almost
Yeah.
everything.
So what's required here is a CPU architecture that provides this dynamic scaling of frequency. And
Mhm.
so if you have a system like that, it is likely that you have a system that can be compromised. But the reality is that, you know, a lot of this stuff is, there are some theories about how people could do this remotely to exploit it. Some people have
Mm.
postulated that maybe you could do it via WebAssembly. JavaScript is another possible sort of candidate. People are exploiting these systems all the time.
Yeah.
We've seen. I mean, I've seen this all the time. Crypto miners are, injecting algorithms into JavaScript payloads, sort of thing to run on remote systems. So, there's any number of things that you can do. So, anyways, just to put it on people's, I thought it was interesting. I don't think it's any cause for concern at the moment, but certainly an interesting conversation topic.
Yeah. Do you know one thing that you can do to mitigate a lot of security problems, John?
Don't use computers.
Don't use outdated software.
Right.
So, Internet
I like that.
Explorer,
I like your little segue there. Yes.
zing, got it in
Yes.
there. Microsoft retires Internet Explorer after nearly 27 years of
Hooray.
pain and suffering. Oh, that wasn't part of the headline. That was just me speaking out loud. Launched in 1995 and has now been replaced by Microsoft Edge.
Right.
How many times have we had this sunsetting of Internet Explorer? I could have swore we've done this before.
Right. Well, there's a website, death2ie11.com, that you can go to, and it had a countdown clock, and it finally hit 0 yesterday. So everyone was really happy about that. I've been using Explorer in various incarnation in various versions since the 90s. For a while there, it was actually my one of my favorite browsers. But I haven't used it in a long, long time. So, hats off to Microsoft for providing a competitor to Firefox slash Mozilla slash Netscape slash whatever you want to call it.
That came
Um,
full circle.
yeah, I
So those
know.
things were invented to be competitors to Internet Explorer and
Well,
Netscape.
Mosaic, yeah, Mosaic, then Netscape, then yeah, I went the opposite direction. Sorry.
But they
Yeah,
you're kind of right though, because like it has kind of reversed gears over the last decade. It
right.
has
Yeah.
IE was like the one that had, if I remember right, there was a class action what's it called, monopoly lawsuit against Microsoft in regards to like bundling IE with Windows, and there was a
Let's be
whole
clear. It wasn't about IE. It was about JVM. It was about the Java Virtual Machine, and in particular, well, there actually no, that's not true. There was that, but there was also another lawsuit that involved Sun. And well, anyways, yes, you're right. Sorry, I apologize. But I was thinking of Sun and Microsoft going at each other for
I think
the
it was like
JVM. And
Windows 95. I think that what
yes,
they bundled IE as like the default browser, and that was like reason enough to make the world angry.
yes. Now, just
Because anytime they bundle something with the default OS, like that thing, especially when given for free, is going to take precedence over paid software that does the exact same thing.
this
So
is
they
this
they
is one
saw
of
this
those.
anti-competitive.
Sure. I mean, IE6 will continue to live on forever. I mean, it's a cockroach technology. You cannot kill it with the nuclear technology of destruction of new versions to kill this thing off. It is indestructible. So,
So let's put
unfortunately,
it this way: when have you ever paid money, cash money, for a browser?
I have never paid cash money for a browser ever.
Yeah, so I think the class action lawsuit had merits. Let's just say
Well,
that.
yeah.
So, back in 1995, yeah. So that was, the other alternatives. They came about. I honestly can't tell you how Mozilla makes its money. I honestly don't know and never looked it up. I can guarantee you I know what Google does to support their browser. That's basically data collection for search and advertising. Um, so there's ways around this whole thing, but because of this bundling, we've never paid for anything. But got way off tangent. Um, yeah, but these things came up as competitors to IE, and then IE finally is getting sunset, and Now we have some pretty good competition out there. There's a little bit of lack in like engine diversity these days. A
Right.
lot of them, Edge is Chrome and or Chromium, and Chrome is Chromium, and there's not a whole lot other variety other than that in Mozilla. But it's still in a lot better place than we were, 10 years ago.
Right.
So it's nice to see, that we don't have to support this thing anymore. I think web developers have been trying really hard to, convince people that they don't need to use it anymore or support it anymore. It looks like Fuel Snamble in chat here is a huge fan of IE, by the way.
There you go.
Lots of commentary in chat about how much he loves IE. So.
Sure.
Right, John. This looks really interesting. You'll have to tell me more about it. Running unit tests in GitHub Actions. Again, still something I haven't quite gotten a grasp on.
Yeah. So GitHub Actions is quickly becoming the sort of CI system of choice now. It is by far, well, it's because it's married to GitHub. Obviously, it's probably the most popular sort of environment out there, aside from possibly Jenkins. Jenkins is definitely up there. Anyways, so GitHub Actions is basically the way in which you stitch together workflows for running against your repository code. And this was an article written by a colleague of mine at Octopus. His name's Matt Casperson, and he did a great job of articulating how to incorporate unit testing for various languages into your GitHub Actions. Now, the reason why this is important is because this is something you may want to do if you are accepting pull requests from the community, or you're using GitHub as your repository, and you want these to be enforced as static checks on a repository. Let's say if you're doing branch protection and you want to have static checks against your main branch, and you want to make sure that these all unit tests pass before even considering merging a PR, for example. This is how you can do it. Now, even more importantly is also the fact that these will actually not only unit test, but actually display nice little reports for you to take a look at, that you can use. So what Matt did in this article is just basically show you how to wire these things up in YAML. So YAML is basically the lingua franca for stitching together actions and GitHub Actions amongst other CI tools. But you can see here in the screenshot that after the run, a nice little report will be generated for you to inspect, and it will tell you which ones passed, which ones failed, which ones skipped. So it's typically that sort of dialogue you see in a command line interface. The problem with command line is sometimes in a CI instance is that it's not very reachable. And in fact, in GitHub Actions, it's kind of buried between, your jobs, and then they're buried in chevrons that you have to expand. And what would be nice is just to have a couple of clicks to expose that data. And so that's what these things do. And so you can see when they pass, when they fail, etc. And it cross cuts various languages. So something to consider. I would certainly advocate that if you are doing any sort of work with a CI instance like GitHub Actions, Circle CI, Jenkins, Bamboo, you name it, TeamCity, whatever, Azure DevOps, that you start incorporating this as part of your build pipeline. And so this is a good article to reference for that. We also hosted a webinar with a friend of ours, Damian Brady. He is he's a
video here.
Yeah, he's a member of the GitHub team at Microsoft, and they did a co-webinar where they talked about, how to basically create workflows or pipelines using GitHub Actions, and we obviously incorporate that on the Octopus deploy side.
Looks like you've got some more stuff coming up too. I can get a nice little pop up here at the bottom.
So, yes,
Azure Arc and Octopus deploy.
Yes, it's always this and Octopus deploy, or that and Octopus deploy. So we are part of an ecosystem.
Yeah, I like that.
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah,
possibly progress in Octopus deploy at some point.
We'll have to chat. I did like a contribution to something fairly recently. I'm trying to remember what it was. ASPNET core or something like that.
Right.
Where these the tests were part of the deployment or the CI process. So like,
right.
If you fork the repository and want to make a contribution, these tests are going to run before somebody's even going to look at the
Yes.
pull request.
Yes.
So that's nice for the authors. It
It
kind of
is.
scales their, just scales their, what do you call it? Their reach as far
Yeah.
as
I mean,
goes.
ideally the way you would set this up, and this is just more of an aside, but is and this is something we're looking on my team at the moment, is the whole concept of auto merging. So the idea is that if you submit a PR and it has code coverage that is 100% on new delta, and the unit test pass, then you
Mhm.
have potentially the option of doing auto merging as part of that. So it does open up the velocity for your projects hosted on GitHub as a potential side effect for that. So we're looking at this. You'll see this in a lot of repositories where people go through this process automatically, like a CLI signing. Like if you have to sign an agreement for a repository as a contributor, you'll typically see this where you sign the agreement, it then goes through the workflow. Those are static checks that you see. More often than not, though, you don't see static checks in repos that enforce unit testing or builds or things like that. Those are part of more of a release process that you see. And I think that the trend is moving more towards this idea of, hey, we should really have repos that perform work against your PR before even considering looking at a merge.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And I noticed there's a link to like running end-to-end tests with GitHub
right.
Actions as well. This is one I'm going to say, like, if you're expecting this to run on pull requests, make sure you have documentation for the end user to be able to run it locally. This was an issue with one of those contributions I was trying to make to a project. We'll just say a
Yes.
project where like the end-to-end tests would not run locally, and I could not for the life of me chase down somebody in the org to tell me how exactly to get those working.
Yes. So
It's
there
like,
are there
oh,
are
that's so and so's job, and then like 10 emails later it's like circled
yes.
back to me. It's like, maybe Ed
So
knows something. Like, no.
so what's interesting about end-to-end testing and in the context of a CI system, and this is something that we're looking at very, very seriously, is that one of the things that you get with CI/CD systems is you get these pipelines that are built out of actions that are custom or tailored specifically for the environment within which they'll run. So an example is, let's say I do a end-to-end test pipeline for GitHub Actions where I have a description in YAML, it runs an end-to-end test, but the problem is I can't run that locally because I'm not in GitHub Actions. So what do? There are tools you can download to run them locally, but even that is not a very nice solution. What you would ideally like is a description of a pipeline that's independent of the host. That is of GitHub Actions. I can take it, I can put it anywhere. I can put it on Circle CI, I can put it on TeamCity, I can put it on GitHub Actions, etc., and just have it run. And interestingly enough, there's a project that's doing this. We've talked about it on this show. It's called Dagger. If you go to dagger.io, what this is a new approach that utilizes Docker containers as part of the host pipeline engine. And so the idea is that I want to create a pipeline that is portable, essentially. And I also don't want to use YAML. So they espouse a language built by Google called Cue. And the idea is that it's like a better form of YAML in the sense that it has constructs like looping and templating and things like that. But
Mhm.
at the same time, those descriptions are independent of the running context, which means that these pipelines can work both remotely and locally. So and this is all based on the Docker runtime. So the gentleman I think who worked on Docker or built Docker is one of the contributors to this, and they're utilizing Docker as the underlying subsystem for this to basically provide a means of having portable pipelines, which is awesome. So this is something we're looking at very seriously. What are
This
you looking
is
at the trademark for?
I was wondering if they had any relation to the game. What is that thing called? Among Us.
Oh,
Their
okay.
their branding looks very
Well,
very similar,
all right.
and I think it's intentionally similar. But I was wondering if it was very intentionally, like they're the same dev team behind the game, or if they're
Sure.
just running
You
on
know what's
the
hilarious? I'm more I
Apple.
don't
Yeah,
care what this looks like. I'm just excited by the potential possibility. And here you are looking at the pretty icons. You've been sucked in by the design.
I
It's like
have. Um, yeah, I mean, this is it follows kind of the theme of the game as well. So I'm
right.
wondering if somebody was just a big fan of the game when they designed this, or if they're
I don't
actually
know.
like associated with that, system somehow. That would be
Okay,
really cool if it was like, well, while we built the game, this is a problem we ran into, so that we spun off this side company type of thing. I was just
sure.
curious.
Yeah, that
My
makes sense. Go
curiosity
from video
got me. I was
games.
kind of
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
into their branding to see if there was something that linked the two together, but
there you
apparently
go.
there's not off the top of my head I can find anything. But
So, anyways, check it out. Dagger.io. That's another little thing. For those wondering, it is early days, so it's 0.1 is the version. So
so
we're
it's still kind of a beta.
we're not feature complete by any stretch.
Speaking of feature complete, Visual Studio Code version
Yes,
1.68 is out.
yes. So a little bit of some updates here. Some of the ones that are notable for me: Git branch protection is built into VS Code, which is awesome. So the idea is that it will notify you if you're trying to commit to a branch that has static checks and or has protection enabled. So you need to be code owner, etc., to accept pull requests, etc.
Mhm.
There's some other things that are in there, but just nothing too obvious. But some things. It depends on what you're targeting. Like if you're a TypeScript developer, you can go to source definitions now directly within VS Code. There's a variety of other features as well that have been enabled. If you're a extension author, you can get possibly sponsored within the tool now.
That's
So
pretty
yeah,
cool. I
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
So this will help like support extension authors, so you can just like
sure.
give them a tip or whatever straight
I wrote an
through the
extension
UI.
for
That's
it,
pretty cool.
so there. Maybe I should put a
Shameless
sponsor button
plug.
up.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Humble brag. So
Add a sponsor button there, John.
sure,
Can
buy me a coffee.
buy you a coffee or get the koala uh, rescue service to come pull koalas out of
Sh-
your Christmas tree or whatever it is.
Sure, why not? Exactly.
That was a callback from a long time ago. I don't know if anybody possibly remembers that article where I was teasing you about koalas being pulled out of a Christmas tree in Australia. But anyway, I
Nice.
always got to throw some random fact out there, right? Why we'll never have enough software developers? What's this all about, John?
All right. So this was an interesting article that I stumbled upon. Basically, there's obviously a lot of folks who say like, well, when you take a look at your career from a long perspective, a long time perspective, that we have data now that shows that there are a number of folks who basically like the dropout rate of software developers is quite high. So you typically have people who burn out pretty quick. Not burn out, but they leave the profession of engineering and software development from a traditional standpoint pretty early on in their career. If you consider that the average career is going to be what, 40 years, start in 20, end at 60, 70 maybe. Most developers are done, or there's a high percentage of developers who leave by their 50s, basically, is what this article is articulating. And this is based on a whole variety of data that was cited. I can't vouch for the authenticity of this data, but it looks pretty consistent. But basically, this article is going into the perspective of, listen, don't worry about not getting a job in this profession. We are screaming for people,
Mhm.
and the turnover rate in this industry is quite high. Now, that's another issue aside. Like, why is the turnover rate so high? Like, why is it just new engineers are the only ones coming into this space? Now, obviously, there will be people who will say, like you and I with the gray beards, "Oh, I've been in this industry. How can this possibly be true? I'm in my 40s or 50s, and I'm still kicking and all that." And that's true. But I think that I think part of the nature of this is that our industry is definitely one that is constantly changing, right? Like Um,
Absolutely.
and like my dad's a doctor, and I say to him from time to time, he's like, you don't have someone come into your waiting room with like 10 heads, and now that's the new norm, right? It's like your biology amongst humans is pretty consistent, hasn't changed from year to year, month to month, quarter to quarter, right? Someone comes into the office, they've got a head, typically two arms, two legs, whatever. You can kind of look at them and understand what's going on, obviously with some variances. But with software and with hardware, it's constantly changing, right? Like it's just like, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. We're doing it this new way, and that's changing week to week, month to month, year to year, etc. So I think that turnover, that change, has something to do with it. But I thought it was an interesting analysis of basically the demographics, the age demographics, and the rates in which people are leaving or entering the industry, et cetera, et cetera. So if you wanted there's also some justifications as to how we're hiring and why we're hiring and how we're approaching interviewing, et cetera. So I thought it was an interesting sort of meta take on the industry as a whole from a employment perspective.
Yeah, I'm finding this really interesting right here. So
Right.
this one is the rate in which you need to, I guess, acquire new skills.
Extremely high.
Yeah, so I don't know what the scale of this number is, but
It's probably just some number that's indexed. That's just, I don't think it's out of 10.
yeah,
I think it's just it's
mm,
like the higher the number, the more obviously it matters. So
yeah, this seems like some kind of ranking here, though. But you've got like electrical engineer as a 4 on the scale, and you can imagine how fast that technology and stuff is moving. Web developer is up at like
sure,
6.29.
sure.
um just general software development's
Well,
at
it
5.
says it says it says in the sentence underneath that table, web development has the highest rate of skill change amongst all jobs in the country,
Mhm.
which is nuts.
I mean, it's like new concepts and ways of doing our job are
Sure.
being thrown at us
Yes.
more frequent than anybody else.
It is the game of life experiment run amok with on
Mhm.
a career basis, basically. It's like natural selection and adaptation at its peak in terms of a career. I think that's part of the reason why the turnover is so high.
Yeah. I mean, you could put it like in context with maybe some other types of things like skilled trades. I mean, they all take, varying degrees of highly, you know, detailed skill, like learning to uh, like weld, for example, or
Sure.
plumbing or something like that. And those
Some
things do
craftsmanship.
have,
Yeah.
yeah, some change over time. There will be new welding techniques or new plumbing techniques that come along, but they
Yes.
don't change like every 3 to 6 months. Like,
No.
it's not, you build like a house and you plumb it, and then you go to the next house and plumb it. It's not completely different than the last house that you
Right.
plumbed. Where
Right.
and web development is like, yeah, the last one we built with jQuery, and now we're on React. So it's kind of the same, but it's all different. It's like, working in a fish factory, but you're not cleaning and gutting fish all day.
Yes.
Um, in other words, it's like nothing like it was before. So yeah, I could see like we've got our work cut out for us, but there's some of us that are happy to take on the new challenges and stuff. I think that's what keeps it fresh and interesting.
Yeah.
So
So
keep
at
finding
the
new
end of
ways to do
this
it.
at the end of this essay, there's two observations that are made, which I think are quite obvious, but also quite astute. Which is, one, software development has a turnover problem, and I think most of us knew that. But this is one of the first ones, I think, that is one of the first essays I've read that actually articulates this quite well. And then second, software development also has a selection problem. And this is basically what one of the observations that was made in the article was that the fastest, highest ability learners in the industry disproportionately leave the field over time. And so there's a high there's a high opportunity cost associated with software development, basically based on a person's intellect and skills relative to that field. And that's not something you want for an industry. You want people who are going to be able to provide their skills, insights, knowledge, experience to people coming into the industry. And so that's part of the reason why it's a difficult industry to get into, is because there's no one left if you're coming into the industry, there's no one to learn from are more often than not, and you're kind of left to your own devices to a certain extent. Um, so, there is that also to consider. So I don't know how we solve this problem. I think it's tough. I think it's driven by market forces that are outside the scope of the industry, namely, innovation is definitely a driver for this. So I don't know what to do, but I thought it was an interesting article nonetheless.
Yeah, this is really interesting, and I'm gonna reinforce the findings in this, especially this skill change thing,
Yes.
when we go on to talk about what's new in ASP.NET Preview
I
7.
know, I know, right? We're just what we're doing here by talking about all the new stuff is we're just reinforcing
Yeah.
that article that was talking about. So, anyways, .NET 7 preview
So
5. They're talking about all kinds of new stuff that's coming down the pipe.
in the land of creative destruction,
Yes.
um, the the ASP.NET 7 preview. It looks like a lot of the stuff that was in here. I read through this, John. There's
Yeah.
some generic math improvements. I think a lot of this is like speed improvements as well that went into a new text classification API for ML.NET. So that was a big chunk of this. There's also a lot of JSON serialization and deserialization stuff in here. Um, yeah, it's this is above my pay grade, but there's a lot of JSON work that was implemented in this preview. I haven't been experimenting with this preview too much
Right.
because there are issues. It's kind of it's not an easy thing to do what they're trying to do with .NET MAUI, which is their multi application UI endeavor.
Mm,
So there was the big promise of side by side installations with .NET, and unfortunately, if you install the Preview 7 bits, it breaks your ability to do MAUI applications.
interesting.
Yeah. So there is, I guess, some hard dependencies on .NET 6, and if you even have so much as .NET 7 installed on your system, it sees that and
No
throws
soup
it
for
to
you.
the yeah. So you can do like global.jsons and stuff, but I've found
Yep.
that that is simply not enough, especially if you're on a Mac for Linux OS reasons. It seems to be worse. What I mean by that is like a global.json, you could put like down in the root as far as you can go this
Right.
configuration file. And if .NET sees it, it's like, oh, you want to, it's like a version manager. It's like you have 7 installed, but you want to use 6. Anything under this directory that's running or being built will use .NET 6. You can only go so far down in a Unix based OS before it stops letting you write files. And I was having an issue where the installers were checking the .NET version. The installers are running in a different context and they don't see the global.json, so they fail. You can't get your bits on the machine. It was a whole thing. So I just ended up on installing .NET 7.
Sounds like
Um,
fun.
yeah, not to sidetrack too much. If you're not doing Maui, check out .NET 7 Preview 5. There's some new things in there, new toys to play with.
Yep.
And so there's also some new .NET non-preview updates as well. So there was a June update. .NET 6.0.6 came out, and .NET Core 3.1.2.6. The important things to note in this release post, though, is that .NET 5 is now out of support. Womp
Yes.
womp.
Yes. The losing horns for the price is right. So,
Yeah.
yeah, this was something that obviously a lot of people in the industry in the .NET space were obviously aware of. I think if you're not, you should be. Basically, it doesn't mean that everything stops running. It just means that it's officially out of support. So you should move to .NET 6. And
Yeah.
so, and then the next one is .NET Core 3.1. That's coming down the pipe,
End
December
of the
13th.
year.
So, yeah,
Yeah, end of the year. .NET Core 3.1 is gone. This is going to be a welcome change for me because this makes support easier on the Telerik UI for Blazor bits.
Okay.
So the .NET Core 3.1 bits have the first introduction of Blazor in them, and there's features that were added beyond .NET 3 that make building just anything in Blazor easier. You can do like more modular approaches to um, the JavaScript interops, and there's lazy loading for .NET assemblies and
Right.
JavaScript in there. So you can't quite bake in these lazy loading features into a product because you have to support the older version of .NET, and then you have to,
Right.
if you do, add these things in, you have to have two separate builds, or one that has quite a significant amount of like if def stuff in it, and basically writes out two different assemblies at the end of the day anyway.
Yeah, we
So
use
it's just yeah.
just as an FYI, we use Nuke for managing our .NET builds. Works pretty well actually. So
Mhm.
it's like a make file but in C sharp, and
Yeah.
you can get some pretty good control over targeting different versions, different PIDs, platform IDs.
It
If you're
still
building for
requires you to upkeep like two different code bases at some
sure,
point.
sure,
So when this December 13th thing happens, that frees you up for just using the newer bits. So
right.
we'll be completely on .NET 6 by then, .NET Core 6, and
Then everything will be awesome, right?
yeah, the grass will be greener because these
Yes,
features are kind of pretty nice features that we can't quite just implement without you know cutting off people that are using the older bits. So
right.
that'll be a nice welcome thing. So that is out. And then finally, John, I thought you would really enjoy this, and I do as well. But I know we talk about WebAssembly quite a bit on the show. And Adobe has released a free version of Photoshop that runs in the web browser.
Yeah, this was something that was done actually quite a while ago. I remember reading about Photoshop going to WASMs back in the day, but the whole making it free is new. That's
Mhm.
interesting. So
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of competitors out there for this like entry level, because it's not like the complete feature, complete Photoshop. So
yeah,
there's a lot of free alternatives out there. And
Pixelmator
then
is not free, but it is more affordable. Yes, I
yeah,
use
they may have
Pixelmator.
a like a freemium version of it or something,
Yes,
because it is mentioned in free, or it is cheaper alternatives too. So
more
maybe
affordable,
it's
not cheaper.
more
It's not
affordable.
cheap. It's a
Yeah,
good program. Cheap makes it sound like it's not
makes
a
it
good program.
sound like it's not great.
More
So
affordable.
I think it was photoshop.adobe.com.
I think it's something like that. Yeah.
Adobe. I had it open a minute ago.
I tried this out a while ago. I remember looking at this a few months ago, and I was like, okay, yeah, cool. I mean, it's good on them for getting it running. I mean, that is not an easy program. So
So I think I'm hitting it wrong. I had it up in the browser. It's pretty neat.
yeah,
Um, I can do layers and some of the
yeah,
special effects and all of that. So you can just go on the Photoshop website and find it and run it. You just need an Adobe account, which is free also. So you
sure.
just create Adobe account, jump on. It is a beta,
Yep.
so expect
Not
beta things
nothing,
to happen.
nothing, nothing out of the ordinary from a company that purchased another company that made similar software to run in the browser. I'm talking about Macromedia and Flash, of course, being acquired by Adobe.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's at least they're consistent. I'll give them that.
Yeah, I mean, the subtitle says some features will be paywalled in the future.
Yes,
I mean,
it's
that
like
kind of goes without saying.
save.
Save.
Yeah, you can't
Oh,
save.
there are apps that have done that before. That is
Yeah.
not a funny joke. I
Oh,
remember,
you actually want to have the file? Oh, that's going to cost you.
yeah, I remember back in the day. Don't remember exactly what the app was, but I know there have been instances where it's been like, okay, you want to save, then this is the time to pay. Like, back in the Windows 95 era, at least. That was a thing, like one of the shareware approaches. Yeah. But yeah, this is cool stuff. It's more of what we were talking about, a couple weeks ago, where WebAssembly is making more things possible in the browser, and
So I got it to load. It's at photoshop.adobe.com. So there you go.
I don't know why it wasn't running for me.
DNS. It's always DNS.
So it helps if you spell it right.
Photoshop.adobe.com, or Adobe, as some people like to call it.
Yeah, there it goes. So basically, you just need to
show us all your
have an
creds.
account.
Yes.
Get in there. Once you get in there, you make stuff.
Oh, there you go. A subscription is required to create or open. So you can play with it. There you go. But don't you dare save.
To edit or save changes, open in Chrome or Edge.
Oh, there you go.
It's not
or
supported
IE. Maybe
on,
maybe IE is supported.
Yeah,
to bring our conversation full circle.
Yeah, it's not supported on Firefox for some reason.
Cool photo. Cool little image there. That's awesome. Wonder what layers are like.
I don't know, because I guess because I'm on not on
Edge.
a Chromium browser, it's not letting
What are
me
you
do
on?
This is Firefox.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was Edge. It looked like Edge for a sec.
No.
There we go. Okay.
So,
where are the layers?
So it should be able to.
Okay.
Required to edit files. I didn't see this earlier. It actually showed me the whole structure of it earlier.
Well, there's the left-hand side will probably fly out and show you other things. Like you got tools, you got a palette tools there. I don't know. Maybe it's. Oh, what are you doing?
It did not do this to me earlier.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Maybe it's because of the way I got in it. I did take the tour. Maybe that was it. You could tour it, but not fully use it.
I hate tours. I hate product tours. They're always like, yes, I get it.
Next. Yeah, we get that. Yeah. There's where
there you go. There's your layers. There you go. Yeah. They're on the right side. There you go.
I knew I saw layers in here. Save and export. I do have subscription too, but so much for that free thing, huh?
Yes. Where are the layers? Show me the layers for a second. Ah, cool. There you go. Nice. So you can turn those on and off. Oh, I guess you need to pay for that. That's awesome. Oh, you can't resize those? Oh, all right.
Yeah. They'll probably do like the games on like mobile devices where it's like you're like, I want layers, and you click on it, it's like 12 Adobe coins to unlock.
Yes. you must buy a chest and open it, and
the beginner chest pack.
Yes.
The filters will come in random crates. Yes. And you have to collect 10 blur filters before you can upgrade to a Gaussian blur filter.
Gaussian blur, that's right. Hey dude, I achieved. Yeah, it was like GitHub added achievements this week. I don't know if you saw that, but it's the same thing. They could probably add achievements that's like, hey, it looks like you're a blur master. You use a Gaussian blur, or you like drop shadow master or something like that. I don't know. So.
Oh man, I'm scared to give them ideas with some of these.
I know
rants that I come up with. It's like,
yeah. Nice.
I don't know. It's scary.
I like it.
Yeah, but it's cool to see it running in the browser, though. It is
indeed
quite 100%. The engineering feat.
Yes.
All right, John.
I agree.
I think all right. That does it for today. We've about exhausted the interwebs and all the new things that have come about. So we'll call it quits and come back next week and chat some more.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Keep tuned in to Eat Sleep Code and Code It Live, and we'll have more content coming your way.
Sweet.
Bye-bye.